My producer, Jennifer McClellan, senior producer of the program, came across a story the other day, and I looked at this and I said, wow, they're still having problems with Hurricane Sandy victims, trying to get money for them. It's been since October of 2012 that storm hit. And it's interesting to note that Representative Tom MacArthur, who represents the 3rd Congressional District in New Jersey, has proposed legislation to take care of yet another glitch in the system. He is with us now. He tweets at Rep. Tom MacArthur. Congressman, welcome to the program today.
Good morning. Thank you, Tim.
3rd District is kind of like the midriff of New Jersey, right, going across the whole state, isn't it?
Well, it is, and it's the southern part of the state, covers about half of southern Ocean County and all of Burlington County.
Okay. Well, again, I go back to what I said in the beginning here. The 2012 Superstorm Sandy, devastating, and we thought that a lot of work was underway, money was in place, but there are still problems. Tell us what prompted you to propose this legislation.
Well, you're absolutely right. There's major problems, and they're getting deeper and worse for people because now, 2.5 years later, people have been paying mortgages on destroyed homes plus rent in places where they're living today, and it's just been very, very difficult. What led to this piece of legislation was a couple that came to my Toms River office, Russ and Joanna Obrist, and they explained how they had taken a small business administration loan after the storm. Usually the SBA loans to businesses, but in a disaster they loan to individuals. And the SBA offered loans, and the Oberists took one, and then months later found out it made them ineligible for certain other forms of grant aid, and in fact they had to repay some of it. So as I looked into it, I found that 32,000 people had borrowed close to $2 billion from the SBA, and now they're not eligible for the grants that they really need to get their homes lifted and livable again. And it just seems unfair to me that a loan that has to be repaid with interest, a loan that's really a second mortgage on your house, makes you ineligible for any other types of help. And so that's what my bill is intended to fix.
As you mentioned, 32,000, some give or take, people affected by this particular process. Give us a sense of the people who are affected and still affected by Superstorm Sandy. Are these people the vacation homes? Are these primary homes? Are they businesses? What is still trying to be fixed?
Yeah, I mean, if you look broader, Tim, the area that's affected includes both second homes and primary homes. This issue is only primary homes, but the shore has been devastated by people whose primary home has been unlivable for the last 2.5 years. But whole communities have also been hurt because homes that were second homes and used to be rented and part of local economies, they're not fixed either because there is no federal aid for second homes, and so you have a sort of a compounding problem. Small businesses are being damaged because communities aren't filled with tourists the way they were. My bill is focused, though, just on primary homes. These, to get federal aid, it has to be your primary residence, and these are regular people. They're working people in southern New Jersey. My district goes from the Atlantic Ocean all the way over to the Delaware River outside of Philadelphia. And these are just regular people like you and I that are trying to make a living, and they've been out of their home now, for 2.5 years, and bearing all these additional costs. And it's, I think people don't realize how devastating an event like this is. And divorce rates are skyrocketing, bankruptcies, our food banks are being overwhelmed in Ocean County. It's a big issue still.
Why is that so? I mean, why has somebody been falling down on the job? Is it just that the devastation was so horrible? Give us your sense of why it is still that so many people are struggling right now.
Well, I think there's a lot of issues, and I can fix the ones that I can fix, and this is my second piece of legislation now, trying to fix one issue at a time that can benefit people. The first bill I proposed was to stop FEMA from recouping funds, and that's when they make a grant, and then later in an audit they change their mind and decide that maybe we shouldn't have made this grant, and they demand the money back. Mm-hmm. And that can happen years later.
This is not a loan. This is actually a grant that they say, oh, by the way, we probably shouldn't have given you this grant, so we want our money back.
Yeah, and so I want to be fair to the taxpayer, but also fair to these victims. And so my first bill was targeting that, where I said, if the applicant has made an error or there's been fraud, well then, I fully support FEMA's right to recoup funds. But if FEMA just changed their mind or they feel they made an error, come on, let's be reasonable. These people have used that money to rebuild their lives. You can't throw their lives into chaos. So that was a small fix that I'm working on. This latest bill is just trying to get at this fact that we have literally thousands of homes that have gotten 75-80% done, and the people are out of money, and they can't get it over that tipping point where they can actually finish it and move back in, and they're not eligible for grants because they took a second mortgage on their home from the SBA. And so if I can get this piece fixed, this is 32,000 homes. It's, probably 50,000 plus people who will be able to then get some help in the form of grants, and that's what I'm after here.
I know you're a freshman. You were elected in the 2014 elections. Was this a big issue during the campaign?
It was. It was an issue because people then and people now are still struggling, and I this is where my background in the private sector I think is helpful, because I did a lot of work in after disasters, and I have an understanding of the process. And there probably are some more sea change types of reforms that we need to look at with our disaster relief programs. But right now, I'm just trying to make some more simple fixes that can help people today.
Do you have any Democratic sponsors on this?
I have Democratic co-sponsors on every bill that I have proposed, including this one. And for me, it is absolutely essential to get things done in Congress. You have to work with both parties. So I have gone out on every bill that I've introduced and asked my colleagues on the other side of the aisle to support it. And likewise, I've supported dozens of pieces of legislation that Democrats have proposed.
Anybody on the Senate side?
We're not there yet. My hope is that as this begins to take hold, we'll get either a senator to introduce the exact same bill, or a bill that does the same thing, and then we can reconcile any differences after we both pass it.
Okay. Well, I know for people in Wichita, it may not make that much of a sense, but I think they understand the idea that sometimes you're struggling with paperwork in the government and bureaucracy when you're trying to recover from an incident, whether it's a hurricane on the East Coast or it's a tornado in Kansas. But I think they can understand what this is about. Well,
I think you just hit it spot on. What I saw in my disaster work all through my career is that flood and tornado and hurricane are no respecter of geography, and every part of the country has its own exposures. And if we can fix things relative to the eastern United States, the people in the Midwest and the West and the South will all benefit from those improvements as well, because they're going to get hit with something sooner or later.
Well, especially when it's a matter of bureaucracy, which is what the case is with your legislation here too. So, Congressman, I appreciate your time today.
Okay, Tim, my pleasure. Have
Thank
a good day.
You too. Representative Tom MacArthur represents the 3rd District in New Jersey, talking about his legislation which would help victims of Hurricane Sandy with the financial burden of rebuilding. As he mentioned, a lot of primary homes involved, and it has to do with a sort of a bureaucratic snag in the way that these things are processed. That is that if you take out a small business association loan, which you're eligible to do in this kind of a situation, then all of a sudden that cuts the amount of money you're eligible for in a grant. So, and that doesn't cover the cost of rebuilding. Anyway, Congressman MacArthur, thanks for joining us. He tweets at Rep. Tom MacArthur. That is MacArthur.